Imagine standing at the absolute peak of your powers, where every door is open and the world seems to offer a blank check for your future. In the high-stakes theater of modern society, there is a specific, almost mythical number that dictates a woman's market value with the cold precision of a stock ticker, 24. This isn't just an age, it is the zenith of what we call eternal liquidity. At 24, a young woman possesses a level of social and romantic capital so immense that she begins to believe it is an inexhaustible resource. We recently saw a startling admission from Song Hae-nae, a top-tier model and a staple of the media landscape, who is now facing the reality of her 40th year. Her reflections pull back the curtain on a terminal psychological pattern that has become an epidemic among the youth. It is the delusion that the peak will never end. This is the 24 trap. At this age, marriage is viewed not as a partnership to be built, but as a guaranteed exit strategy that can be triggered at any moment. Because every man in the vicinity is bidding for her attention, she develops what we identify as the one more round syndrome. Instead of securing a high-value, long-term contract when her market price is at its absolute maximum, she chooses to enter a volatile phase of clubbing and short-term speculation. She believes she is making memories, but in reality, she is burning through her primary asset, time. Every night spent under neon lights is a withdrawal from the beauty bank. The dating market is not a meritocracy of personality or kindness. It is a brutal, high-speed commodity exchange where time is the only currency that cannot be printed or recovered. These young women mistake temporary attention for permanent value, failing to realize that while the attention given to a 24-year-old is a premium asset, the attention-seeking of a 34-year-old is essentially distressed debt. The logic follows a classic supply and demand mismatch. At 24, the female subject experiences an artificial spike in demand. This creates a massive price bubble. She assumes this level of interest is a constant, or even something that will increase as she gains career experience. However, in the unforgiving metrics of the romantic market, what she calls experience is often viewed by the high-value male demographic as simple wear and tear. By the time she reaches 30, the premium bids have vanished, leaving only the bottom fishers and the risk-averse. This leads to the activation of the protocol of sudden, irresponsible indifference, a psychological defense mechanism where the individual pretends that the market she is failing in is one she no longer cares to participate in. It is the expiration of arrogance, a vertical and permanent crash that mirrors the 17th century Tulip Mania, where the perceived value of a single bulb reached the moon before the market realized the intrinsic utility simply didn't justify the price. The luxury fruit has sat on the shelf too long, demanding a gold plate, while the diners have already moved on to the next fresh harvest. By the time she agrees to be served on a silver plate, she has already become discounted inventory, slowly rotting into a state of emotional debt that no high-value partner is willing to consolidate. This is the beginning of a cycle where the main character syndrome meets the reality of biological and social entropy, leaving a generation trapped in the wreckage of their own peak liquidity. As the calendar flips and the subject crosses the threshold into her 30s, a profound psychological shift takes place. A transformation often described as the development of the aura of toxicity. This is the moment the narrative pivots from exploration to a calculated, desperate defense. Suddenly, the woman who was once the life of the party claims she is too busy for marriage, citing a newfound dedication to a career that is often more of a placeholder than a passion. This fake career-centric narrative is the smokescreen for a massive upgrade in demands, and to the myth of the Hexagon Man. This is not a search for a soulmate, it is a search for a high-stakes bailout package. The criteria are mathematically absurd. He must be tall, wealthy, handsome, well-educated, kind, and from a prestigious family. A perfect 6 out of 6 on the social scale. She is demanding that a man who possesses 100% market power invest his entire future in an asset that has already spent its peak years. It is the ultimate expression of the sunk cost fallacy. She believes that because she waited 10 years, the reward must be a prince. In reality, the market does not reward patience in the face of depreciation, it punishes it. A woman's firm refusal at 25 transforms into a plea at 35, but by then, the man's attention has moved to a different zip code. While she hunts for this mythical creature, her lifestyle becomes a financial dead end. Since she cannot secure a primary asset like a home, she overinvests in secondary signifiers. We see the rise of compensatory consumption, the $5,000 handbags, and the $200 chef-curated tasting menus. This creates a negative carry situation. She has zero equity, zero savings, and a maintenance cost that would bankrupt a small nation. She is essentially a restaurant that used to have a 2-hour wait list, but decided to raise prices by 500% while insulting the customers. Now, the dining room is empty, and she sits in the back, eating cold leftovers while putting a sign in the window that reads, "Only royalty allowed." This is the Versailles syndrome, A nobility that has lost its power but doubles down on its demands. The 30-something subject acts like a displaced aristocrat, demanding the dowry of a queen while offering only the utility of a peasant. This bitterness is fueled by the resentment of the early birds. She spent her 20s mocking those who married at 26 as losers. But when those losers are seen living in stable families in the city's most prestigious districts, she suffers a status collapse. To survive the ego death, she adopts a viper-like attitude, attacking the institution of marriage itself. Inside the office, this manifests as a toxic hive mind. Seniors spend their lunch hours in a feedback loop of failure, convincing the younger generation that marriage is a trap, effectively sabotaging their exit strategy to justify their own terminal status. The response from the other side of the aisle is no longer a pursuit, it is a cold-blooded retreat. Men have entered a Great Depression of romance, shifting their philosophy from 100% passion to 0% risk. We are witnessing a massive liquidity crisis because the underwriters, the men, are refusing to sign the contract. They have seen too much. In the age of digital saturation, a man's visual preference has been calibrated to the top 0.1%, creating a terminal experience inflation. When a man who spent his 20s chasing peak aesthetics is asked to settle for a 34-year-old average woman demanding princess treatment, a system shutdown occurs. The cost-to-utility ratio simply does not compute. This is the era of de-risking. Men are realizing that marrying a woman who spent her prime years in a cycle of hyperconsumption means they are essentially cleaning the grease left by others. They are being asked to buy a 10-year-old luxury car for the price of a brand new 2026 model, knowing the previous owners drove it like a rental and never changed the oil even one single time. When he points out the dents, the market screams at him, calling him low class. So he simply walks off the lot and takes the bus. He stays in cash. He stays single. The ROI of a late marriage is mathematically negative. Biological reality is the ultimate debt collector. A marriage at age 35 carries a 400% higher risk of infertility or developmental complications. For a man who worked 15 years to afford a new construction apartment, the ultimate status symbol, the trade-off is insane. He brings his equity, she brings her consumer debt and a biological clock at midnight. This friction follows them into the postpartum care centers, which have become a literal Golgotha of vanity. A 30-year-old woman finds herself as the youngest in a room full of 38-year-old geriatric mothers. These older women are physically broken and resentful, struggling with a first-time production their bodies were never designed for. The young mother becomes a pariah, a living reminder of their failure to launch. It is a physical bankruptcy that no amount of career success can fix. Men see this unmasking and decide to make a quiet exit. They aren't protesting, they are just stop-lossing their lives before the market crashes. This market crash leaves the 33-year-old woman in a terminal rationalization loop. She watches her friends struggle as mothers and claims freedom, while living with parents to fund a fake lifestyle. Do not take advice from these failed traders. The older sisters claiming to enjoy their freedom are simply holding the bag, trying to convince you to wait until your value liquidates. At 31, you face the technical death of your profile. Men set filters to a maximum age of 30, making you 100% invisible. It is the fall of Byzantium. By the time you lower your standards, high-value men are at the gates to replace you, not negotiate. If you do not sell early at your peak of 24 to 26, you are choosing a life of solitude. The verdict is final: cash out at peak or liquidate at bottom. Feel the truth at dating in Korea, support the structure. Stay safe in the lounge.